He was a failure, rejected, ignored, completely unknown. No one followed him. No one believed in him. And yet, within just a few years, that same man would take control of an entire nation. He would command millions, and he would push the world into one of the deadliest wars in history, World War II. This is the story of how a failed artist became Adolf Hitler, and how no one stopped him, until it was too late. Before he became Adolf Hitler, he was just a young man with a plan that didn't work. No success, no recognition, no direction. He wanted to be an artist, but reality had other plans. Adolf Hitler was born on April 20th, 1889, in Austria, a place far removed from the power he would one day hold. His early life showed no signs of greatness. His father was strict and controlling, pushing him toward a stable government career. But Hitler had no interest in that life. He wanted something else. Art. He dreamed of becoming a painter, imagining a future shaped by creativity. Not control, but reality had other plans. In 1907, he applied to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts. He was rejected. A year later, he tried again, rejected again. The academy didn't just turn him away. They told him he lacked talent. That moment mattered, because it didn't just end a dream, it created a void. With no direction, no success, and no support, Hitler drifted into a life of instability. He moved through Vienna living in poverty, selling small paintings just to survive, sometimes sleeping in shelters, surrounded by others who had also been left behind by society. But Vienna wasn't just a place of struggle. It was also a place of ideas. Nationalism was rising. Political tension was growing, and extreme beliefs were becoming louder. In this environment, something began to form. Not success, but resentment. Not purpose, but anger. He was still unknown, still powerless. But the foundation of something dangerous had already begun. Then came war. In 1914, Europe exploded into conflict. What would become World War I? For many, it was chaos. For Hitler, it was opportunity. He joined the German army, leaving behind the failure of his past and stepping into something that finally gave him direction. In the war, he found structure, purpose, belonging. He served as a messenger, a dangerous role that required moving between front lines under constant threat. He was wounded. He faced death. And for the first time, he was recognized, earning the Iron Cross for bravery. The war gave him something he had never had before: identity. But that identity was built on one condition. Germany had to win. And in 1918, everything collapsed. Germany lost. The empire fell, the nation surrendered, and millions were left shocked, confused, and humiliated. For Hitler, this wasn't just defeat, it was betrayal. He refused to believe the military had truly failed. Instead, he believed Germany had been weakened from within, undermined, deceived, and forced into surrender. That belief would become central to everything he would later say and everything he would later do. Because the war didn't just change Europe, it changed him. The failed artist was gone. In his place was a man shaped by war, anger, and a growing sense that something had been taken from him, and he was not alone. After the war, Germany didn't just lose, it broke. In 1919, the country was forced to accept the Treaty of Versailles, a document that reshaped its future in the harshest way possible. Germany was blamed for the war. It was forced to pay massive reparations. It lost land. Its military was reduced to a shadow of its former strength. But the real damage wasn't just political. It was psychological. The people felt humiliated, angry, defeated. At the same time, the new government, the Weimar Republic, struggled to maintain control. It was democratic, but weak. Unstable coalitions, constant political conflict, no real trust from the people. And then came economic disaster. Inflation spiraled out of control. Money became almost worthless. People carried stacks of cash just to buy basic food. Unemployment spread. Poverty deepened. Germany wasn't just recovering from war. It was collapsing. And in moments like this, people begin to look for answers, for someone to blame, for someone to lead. The conditions were perfect, not for stability, but for something far more dangerous. Because in a broken nation, a powerful voice can rise quickly, and soon one would. After the war, Adolf Hitler did not return to a normal life. Germany was unstable. The streets were filled with political tension. Different groups fought for control of the country's future. It was in this environment, in 1919, that he was sent to observe a small political group, the German Workers' Party. At first, it meant nothing. A small meeting, few people, no real influence. But something happened there. During one discussion, Hitler spoke. Not as a soldier, not as a failed artist, but as someone with conviction. His words were emotional, aggressive, and direct. He spoke about Germany's defeat, its humiliation, and the anger many people already felt but could not express. The room reacted. People listened. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't ignored. He was heard. That moment changed everything. He didn't just join the party. He transformed it. Through speeches, he drew attention. Crowds began to grow. His voice became his weapon. He blamed Germany's problems on the Treaty of Versailles, on weak leadership, and on enemies he claimed were responsible for the country's suffering. His message was simple. Germany had been wronged, and it needed to rise again. By 1923, his confidence had grown enough to attempt something bold, a direct seizure of power. The beer hall putsch. It failed. The government stopped it quickly. Hitler was arrested. Once again, he had failed. But this time, failure did something different. It made him visible. Prison could have ended everything. Instead, it became a turning point. While imprisoned, Hitler wrote a book, Mein Kampf. It outlined his beliefs, his worldview, and his long-term vision for Germany. But more importantly, it revealed a new strategy. He would not take power by force. He would take it legally. When he was released, Germany was entering one of the most difficult periods in its history. In 1929, the global economy collapsed. The Great Depression hit Germany hard. Businesses failed. Millions lost their jobs. Families struggled to survive. Desperation spread across the country. And in desperate times, extreme ideas gained attention. The Nazi Party began to grow, slowly at first, then rapidly. Hitler's speeches became larger, his presence stronger, his message more refined. He promised economic recovery, national pride, a return to strength. People began to believe him. Election after election, the Nazi Party gained more seats. What was once a small group became one of the most powerful political forces in Germany, and Hitler, once ignored, became impossible to ignore. This was no longer a failed man trying to be heard. This was a movement, and it was gaining speed. By the early 1930s, Germany was politically divided and unstable. No party had full control. Governments struggled to last. Confidence in democracy was fading. In this chaos, Adolf Hitler positioned himself carefully, not as a rebel, but as a solution. In 1933, he was appointed Chancellor of Germany. It was a legal decision, a political move, but it would change everything. Just weeks later, a critical event shook the country. The Reichstag building, the center of German government, caught fire. The cause remains debated, but the response was immediate. Hitler used the event to declare a national emergency. Civil liberties were suspended. Opponents were arrested. Freedom of speech was restricted. Step by step, the system began to close. Other political parties were eliminated. Power was centralized. And within a short time, the democratic structure of Germany was no longer functioning. It had been replaced. Hitler was no longer just chancellor. He became Führer, absolute leader. No elections, no opposition, no limits. What had begun as a legal rise had become total control. And the most dangerous part, it happened in stages, not overnight, which meant it was never truly stopped. By 1934, Adolf Hitler had complete control over Germany. The failed artist was gone. In his place stood a dictator with total authority over a powerful nation. But power was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of something far worse. Hitler began rebuilding Germany's military, openly violating the Treaty of Versailles. Weapons were produced, armies expanded, plans were set in motion. At the same time, his vision grew more aggressive. Germany would not remain limited. It would expand. Territory would be taken. Control would spread, and the world watched. Some leaders hesitated. Others underestimated the danger, but the warning signs were there. Clear, visible, ignored. In 1939, Germany invaded Poland. And with that, the world was pulled into another global conflict, World War II. What began as the story of one man's failure had become a war that would affect millions across the globe. Cities destroyed, nations shattered, lives lost on an unimaginable scale. And it all traced back to a question that history continues to ask. How did this happen? Because the rise of Adolf Hitler was not just a moment in time. It was a warning,